In the fall of 1954, in a mill town in western Pennsylvania, a young man who could not dance spent 6 weeks learning in secret in a rented church basement at night, so he would not step on the feet of the girl he could not stop thinking about. He was not smooth, not rich, a borrowed suit, a job at the plant, and a plan he told no one. The night he asked her onto the floor, he did not step on her feet once. She married him 14 months later and stayed 51 years. But when their granddaughter asked her, near the end, what made her fall, it was not the dancing. It was something so small, he never thought to count it as a gesture at all. And it is number 1 on this list. He was not unusual. In towns and cities across that America, there were young men like him, not handsome, not wealthy, but carrying small, deliberate courtesies they used so quietly no one thought to call it romance. It was simply how a man showed a woman she mattered, and it made marriages that lasted half a century. We traded it away, one gesture at a time, for speed and ease and the freedom to never try that hard. We called it progress. And now we swipe through 100 faces in an evening and cannot understand why no one makes us feel the way that girl felt on a dance floor in 1954. Number 22, he did every single time without fail, and she said it made her feel safe for the rest of her life. Number 15 sounds like nothing at all, and it is the reason she chose him over a man with twice his money. And number 1, the smallest thing on this entire list, the gesture that young man made without even knowing he was making it, the real reason a woman loved him for 51 years, costs nothing, takes no skill, and is the one thing almost no one does anymore. Stay with them to the end. These were not pickup lines or seduction tactics. They were the opposite of tactics. Small acts of attention so consistent they could not be faked and revealed exactly who a man was. That is the difference between a man who impresses a woman for an evening and one she remembers on her deathbed. Every gesture on this list that young man from the mill town made, in a courtship he was quietly terrified of losing. Hit that subscribe button and let us count down the 25 small gestures men of the 1950s made that would make any woman fall in love today. Number 25, the walk on the outside. Walking down a street, he moved to the curbside without a word, his body between her and the traffic. You drift to the street side, so she is always on the inside. Fathers taught it all through that era, in a country still full of splashing gutters and careless drivers, and it said one thing: I will take the hit before you do. That curbside step was the first thing the young man's own father ever taught him about women, and he kept it 51 years. A woman rarely notices the gesture. She always notices its absence. Number 24, the coat across the shoulders. When the evening turned cold, he laid his jacket over her shoulders before she finished shivering. You watch for the folded arms, the small hunch, and have the coat there before she asks. A steel worker's son in Gary, Indiana in 1956 gave a girl his coat on a bus stop bench and caught the flu for it and called it a fair trade. That was the young man's gesture too. She wore his jacket home from that first dance and kept it a week, and neither of them mentioned it. The coat was warm. Being watched over was warmer. Number 23, he stood when she entered. When she walked into a room, he rose to his feet, all the way up, every time. You set down what you are holding the moment she appears and stand. Across the diners and church halls of the 1950s, this was simply what a man did so common no one remarked on it, and so missed. Now its return would stop a room. He stood every time she entered for half a century, and on the last day of his life, in a hospital where he could barely lift his head, he still tried. A woman is not made small by a man who rises for her. She is told she is worth rising for. Number 22. He walked her all the way to the door. He did not drop her at the curb. He parked, came around, and walked her the whole way, up the path, up the steps, to the door, and did not leave until the porch light blinked. This was the unspoken close to every proper 1950s courtship. The porch, a small stage where a night ended with care. She said this was the one that made her feel safe for life. The young man on her porch in the cold, not leaving until he heard the bolt slide home. He was not trying to come in. He was making sure the dark had nothing of hers. Number 21. He remembered the small thing she said once. She mentioned in passing that she loved a certain flower or missed her grandmother's lemon cake, and weeks later he brought it. You listen for the throwaway line and carry it. A young man in Nashville in 1954 tracked down a record of a song a girl had only hummed once and left it on her step. For our young man, it was that her birthday fell 2 days after Christmas and no one ever remembered, and he never let it pass unmarked again for 51 years. To be remembered is to be told you were worth remembering. Number 20. He opened the door and waited. He opened the car door, the restaurant door, every door, and held it, a habit so deep he did it in the rain without a coat, reaching it first, waiting. In that era, a man came around to her side of the car as a matter of course, a choreography every couple knew by heart. It was never about her being unable. It was a man saying, "You go first," always, and decades in, that small pause still felt like being chosen. A held door reads, "After you." Number 19. He learned to dance for her. He was not a natural and did not pretend to be. He learned in private badly at first, so that when the music started, he could offer his hand instead of an excuse. This is the young man at his most naked. 6 weeks in a cold church basement in 1954, in a decade when the dance floor was where a courtship was won or lost, and every other man just said, "I don't dance," and sat. On the night it mattered, he did not step on her feet once, and she felt a man rearrange himself around her happiness. The dancing was not the gift. The 6 weeks were.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a good name and good manners mean something. It's the lost gentleman's code, the old-fashioned manners American gentlemen once lived by, the kind that make you the man everyone respects, welcome in any room you walk into. But these ways are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. I've put together 2 books for you, plus a free bonus. Don't spend another year being the man people overlook. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait.
Number 18. He gave her his full face. When she spoke, he turned his whole body toward her, and nothing in the room could pull his eyes away. You put down the fork, kill the mind chasing the next thing, and let her have all of you. Even in 1955, before any screen existed to steal a man's attention, undivided focus was the rarest thing he owned, and he spent it on her. That was his gesture above nearly all others, and we are getting close now to why it mattered more than he knew. A man fully present is telling a woman she is worth being present for. Here is what almost no one will tell you now. None of these gestures were difficult. Not one required money or looks or a thing a man had to be born with. They asked only that he decide a woman's world was worth arranging himself around, then do the small things when no one applauded. We did not lose these gestures because they stopped working. They work exactly as well today as in 1954, which is completely. We lost them because we decided they were too much effort, too old-fashioned, too much like trying, and then we sat in that world, lonelier than any generation before us, wondering where the people went who knew how to make someone feel like the only person alive. Number 17. He carried the heavy things, groceries, suitcases, the awkward box. He took it from her hands before she asked, and made no show of it, so her hands were free. A young man in St. Louis in 1956 carried a girl's stack of library books 11 blocks and pretended they were light. It was not that she could not carry it, it was that she should not have to, not while he stood there. That was his gesture, too, through 51 years of groceries and one long final illness he carried for the both of them. A man who lightens the load, Yun asked, is saying, "Let me take some of the weight of your life." Number 16. He wrote it down and sent it. He wrote her letters, real ones, in ink, on paper, even when he had seen her the day before, putting in his own hand the plain, true things a man feels awkward saying aloud. A young man stationed away in 1957 wrote his girl every single night, and she tied the letters with ribbon and kept them until she died. The young man in our story was no writer, and wrote her anyway, badly and honestly, and she found the whole bundle in his drawer after the funeral. Words spoken vanish. Words written stay. Number 15. He noticed when she'd done something new. He saw the new dress, the different way she'd fixed her hair, and said so plainly before she had to fish for it. "You look," then say the small true thing out loud. "You look wonderful tonight." A young man in Kansas City in 1954 noticed a girl had painted her nails and told her, and she decided then she liked him. It is why she chose him over a man with twice his money. The richer man never noticed, and this one always did, into the years when neither was young. To be noticed is to be told the effort was worth making. Number 14. He defended her when she wasn't there. In a room full of men talking loosely, he would not let a word be said against her or any woman, and she never even knew. You do it in the rooms she will never see, being the same man behind her back you are to her face. A young man in Buffalo in 1958 quietly ended a friendship over the way another man spoke about his girl. His loyalty ran where she would never see it all his life. A man's respect for a woman is measured by how he speaks of her when she cannot hear. Number 13. He was gentle with her fears. When she was frightened, the dark road, the bad news, the things she could not name, he did not tell her she was silly. He took it seriously and stayed, never making her feel foolish for a fear that to her was real. A young man in Denver in 1955 sat up the whole night on the telephone with a girl who was scared and never said calm down. That was his gesture through 51 years of dark roads and bad news. Fear shared with a gentle man gets lighter. Fear mocked goes underground. Number 12. He took the lesser share. In every division of comfort he took less. The wobbly chair, the wet side of the umbrella, the crust while she had the slice, so the better portion always ended up hers. A young man in New Orleans in 1957 walked half-soaked because he tilted the umbrella her way the entire block. That was his gesture, too, down to the last months, when he gave her the good chair by the window without either of them saying a word. A grand sacrifice is easy to fake for a night. 1,000 small ones cannot be faked at all. Here is the part of their story we skipped. It did not go smoothly. In the spring of 1955, a man from a good family, a new car, a college ring, a father who owned half of Main Street, began calling on the same girl, and everyone told her she'd be a fool to refuse him. The Milltown boy had no car and no ring, only 6 months of small things. The curbside step, the remembered birthday, the porch light, the church basement she still did not know about. And one evening she sat with the man who had everything at the best table in town and watched him talk to the waiter as though he were furniture, check his watch while she spoke, and never once turn his whole face toward her the way the Milltown boy did without thinking. She had already been shown what it felt like to be the only person in a room and would not spend a life as furniture in someone else's. She chose the man with nothing, the easiest decision she ever made, she said 50 years later. The reason was the whole list. The deepest thing on it is still coming. It is number 1. Number 11. He was on time. Every time. He arrived when he said he would, or early, hat in hand, because making her wait was a way of saying his time was worth more than hers. You treat the hour you gave her as a promise you keep. A young man in Hartford in 1956 was never late to a single date in 3 years of courting. Our young man was early to their first date and early to their last anniversary dinner 50 years later, hat literally in hand. Punctuality does not sound like romance. It is romance. Respect. You can set a clock by. Number 10. He asked about her day and meant it. He asked how her day had gone, then, this was the whole trick, he actually listened and remembered it tomorrow. Anyone can ask, but he stopped talking and kept the answer. A young man in Richmond in 1954 could recall a detail from a story his girl had told him a week earlier, and it undid her. The small pieces of her ordinary day were, to him, the most interesting news in the world, right to the end, when her days had shrunk to a sick room, and he still asked. Being asked is common. Being heard is not. Number 9. He remembered the anniversaries of small things, not just the wedding date, the day they met, the corner where he first saw her, the anniversary of the dance. You decide the small dates matter and honor them when no calendar reminds you. A young man in Phoenix in 1958 marked the exact spot on a sidewalk where he first spoke to his girl and brought her back to stand on it every year. That was his gesture, too. Every year he marked the anniversary of that first dance, right up until the last one they ever had. A shared past, kept carefully, becomes a home you can live inside. Number 8. He complimented who she was, not just how she looked. He told her she was kind, that she was sharp, that the way she treated her mother said everything, not only that she was pretty. You name her character out loud. Not just you're beautiful, but you're brave, you're good. A young man in Boston in 1955 told a girl he admired the way her mind worked, and she said no one had noticed she had one. That was his gesture, too, part of why she stayed in love long after both their faces had aged. A compliment about her looks flatters her. About her character, it keeps her. Number 7. He won over the people she loved. He learned her mother's name, her father's worries, her brother's baseball team, and won them not to win her, but because they were hers. You treat the people she loves as worth genuine effort, not obstacles. A young man in Detroit in 1956 spent a whole Saturday helping a girl's father mend a fence before he ever took her out. To love a woman was to be adopted by everything she came from. Her father, a hard man who liked no one, came to love him like a son and stood weeping at their wedding. A man who cherishes what she loves, understands what she is made of. Number 6. He apologized first and without excuses. When he was wrong, he said so, plainly, quickly, no, but attached. You say the 3 hard words and stop, I was wrong, with no excuse trailing to take half of it back. A young man in Milwaukee in 1957 drove clear across town at 10 at night to apologize in person rather than let a girl go to sleep angry. Pride was cheap, and a night of her hurt was expensive, and he knew which he could afford to lose through 51 years of the small wrongs that fill any marriage. An apology with an excuse attached is not an apology, it is a negotiation. Here is the trade we made, said plainly. Every one of these gestures asks the same thing, that a man pay attention and act on what he sees, at a small cost to himself, again and again, for no reward. That is effort, in the truest sense, work. And we spent 70 years building a culture that treats effort in love as weakness, that prizes the casual over the devoted. We made trying embarrassing, devotion desperate. And now we are the most connected and least cherished generation in history, staring at glowing rectangles full of people, none of whom ever stood up when we walked into a room. The gestures were never the old-fashioned part. The willingness to try was. That is the part we threw away. Number 5. He guarded her dignity. He never told a story that embarrassed her, never made her the punchline, never let a private thing become public entertainment, guarding what could shame her more carefully than his own. A young man in Atlanta in 1955 took the blame himself before both their families for a mix-up that was clearly his girl's fault, and never told her. That was his gesture too, all his life. She said she never once, in 51 years, had to worry about what he might say. To trust. A man with your dignity and never be betrayed is a rest most people never get. Number 4. He was steady. She always knew which man she was getting, not hot one week and cold the next, not warm in private and distant in public, but the same reliable man every day, so she never had to study his mood to know where she stood. A young man in Indianapolis in 1958 was so even in his devotion, a girl said being with him felt like solid ground. For 51 years, she never once had to wonder if he still loved her. Steadiness is not boring. It is the rarest luxury there is, and a woman can build a whole life on a man she never has to second guess. Number 3. He told her out loud in words. He did not make her guess. He said it. I love you, I'm proud of you, I'd choose you again, plainly, often, refusing to let her read his love off his actions alone. A young man in Spokane in 1956 told his girl he loved her on an ordinary Tuesday for no reason at all, and she said that was the one she remembered above all the grand ones. This was the young man at his most deliberate, a quiet man who made himself say the words because he had decided she would never wonder. The love a man feels but never says is a gift left wrapped in a drawer. Number 2. He kept choosing her after he already had her. The courtship did not end at the wedding. He kept the gestures alive for decades, long after there was nothing left to win, treating having her not as the finish line, but the beginning. A husband in Portland in the 1970s still brought his wife of 20 years a flower every Friday for no occasion. He understood a woman needs to be chosen again and again, not just once. She said the astonishing thing was not that he loved her at the start, but that he never once acted as though the winning was finished. To be chosen once is a wedding. To be chosen daily is a marriage. Number 1. He looked at her like she was the only person in the world. That is the whole of it. When she spoke, he stopped. Everything, all of it, and looked at her, and listened as though nothing else in the room existed, because to him, in that moment, nothing did. This is the thread that has run under every minute of this list since the first. Before the dancing, before the coat, before the porch light and the letters and the 51 years, there was a young man who looked at a girl as though she were the only person alive and never once stopped. That was the gesture she named at the very end when her granddaughter asked what made her fall. Not the 6 weeks in the church basement, not the flowers or the doors or the birthday he never forgot. It was that, from the first night to the last, when she talked, he looked at her as if the rest of the world had gone quiet, and no one, before or since, had ever made her feel so completely, so unmistakably seen. Every other gesture on this list was only this one, wearing different clothes. The coat was this, the letter was this, the 6 weeks were this. 24 ways of saying one thing: you are the only person in the world to me, and I will spend my life making sure you never forget it. That is the gesture almost no one makes anymore, not because it is hard, but because it asks you to put your whole self down and let another person be the center of everything. He did it for 51 years, and on the last afternoon of his life, in a hospital bed, too weak to speak, he heard her voice across the room and turned his head and looked at her exactly the way he had on a dance floor in 1954. She said she felt it from across the room, and that it was the last thing he ever gave her, and the first thing too. None of these 25 gestures required money or looks or a single thing a man had to be born with. They required only a decision that the woman in front of him was worth being paid attention to in 100 small invisible ways that added over a lifetime into the one thing every heart is starving for: to be seen. The men who knew how are mostly gone now, and we tell ourselves it was a quaint performance from a simpler time. It was not. It still works exactly as well as it ever did, because no one has ever grown tired of being made to feel like the only person in the world. The gestures are not patented and not extinct. They wait in every person willing to walk on the outside, to stand when she enters, to wait for the porch light, and to look up when she speaks as though nothing else exists, waiting for someone willing to make a woman feel unforgettable in a world that has forgotten how.